Hey guys, Luke from Mets Performance Consulting here. We are doing session number 2 of week 1, and today we're doing a threshold session. So what this is going to involve, at the moment Liza is running at 10 k's an hour for 5 minutes, and that is the top end of her threshold zone. So threshold is the zone where we are producing lactic acid above resting values. So it's from when we start to produce it above resting right up until our maximal capacity. So when lactic acid entry into the muscle exactly meets our body's ability to remove it. So it's as hard as we can go. So basically it's the definition is the maximum intensity that we can hold for 45 to 60 minutes. So what this is doing, this is getting our body adapt to tolerating and clearing out lactic acid. So lactic acid is that fatiguing byproduct that we get in the legs, that heavy burning feeling that we feel. And this session is all about maximising functional capacity. So the session we did yesterday was VO2 max, which is about building up that aerobic engine. Today we're all about moving that percentage of that VO2 max as close to 100% as possible. So an average individual can only hold 70% of their VO2 max for longer than about 5 minutes, whereas elite marathon runners have been recorded at holding 88 to 94%. So one session was involved, building up the total engine, whereas this one is building up the proportion of that engine that we can tap into and use. So she's going to be doing 5-minute efforts with a 3-to-1 work to rest, so 5 minutes on with about 1.5 off, so a little bit more than that, but close enough to 3-to-1. And then she's also going to be doing some anaerobic sprints lasting for 30 seconds at 13.5 k's an hour, which is about 120% of her VO2 max, so she's well above her threshold and well above her VO2 max zone there. So we'll see how she goes with it. So Liza's doing 5 30-second anaerobic sprints. They're not actually sprints, but they're at, as I said, about 120% of VO2 max. So moving pretty quickly for her little legs. What this is doing, we're getting a massive influx of lactic acid because we're well above threshold and we're well above our VO2 max as well. So 30 seconds is plenty of time to get that lactic acid in the legs, and we're having a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So she's having 30 seconds off now, and then she's going to go jump back on for another 30, and we're going to repeat it 5 times all up. So going back to before, with the threshold stuff, we were doing a 3-to-1 work to rest, so 5 on and 1.5 off, close enough to 3-to-1. And this one is a 1-to-1, but because the intensity is so high, we have plenty of lactic acid in the system. So as I said, we're all about building up this functional capacity here, getting that 70% up closer to 90%, so we can tap into that larger proportion of the engine. And having 30 on, 30 off, we always have lactic acid in the system here, so we're getting better at tolerating it. So we always have it above resting values. So these mitochondria in the legs are starting to shut off, but that's what we actually want in this session. The goal of the session is to get better at tolerating and clearing that lactic acid, so we need it in the system. We're not trying to build up those mitochondrial enzymes and build up the efficiency. We're just trying to get our muscles, or the peripheral muscles, better at tolerating and clearing it. So that's why we always have lactic acid in the system here. We're back to doing 5 minutes at threshold now. So she's at 9.5, so we've dropped it down by 0.5 due to a large EPOC response. Her threshold zone's between 8 kilometres and 10 kilometres an hour, so we're still right at the top end there. And with this one, we're doing a 3-to-1 work to rest. I know I've said that a few times, but again, with this, we're still getting lactic acid in the system. It's getting well above resting, but it's not a massive influx like it was with those anaerobic sprints. So we want to do a 3-to-1 here, so we only get a partial recovery in between. So as I said, we want lactic acid in the system for this session. That's the goal of it, so we get better at tolerating it. So by having 5 minutes on, we get quite a large amount in, but only having 1.5 minutes off, we still have quite a large proportion in when we start the next interval. So that's why we have a 3-to-1, because we want that lactic acid in the system, because that's when our body becomes better at tolerating and clearing it, and pushing that 70% VO2 max, which we can hold for an hour, right up to the elite guys, which are around that 90% mark. So this is Eliza's workout summary, and as I said, I missed the start again just by a bit, but you can see her heart rate's quite steady here into the 150s, pushing 160s here, which is a little bit higher than yesterday when we did the endurance zone warm-up. So that was 5 minutes at 10 k's an hour, which is the top end of her endurance zone there. And we had about 1.5 minutes rest after that, so just a partial recovery.
And you can see here we only got down to 106 beats, whereas yesterday when we had a 1-to-1 with those VO2 max intervals, it got right down to the low 90s. So she's only having a partial recovery here. Next, we move into 30-second sprint with a 30-second effort. So you can see little peaks and troughs here. You see 172 there, 30 or 174, and we had 30 seconds rest. And she only gets down to like 160, very like low 160s there before it goes up again and down, up again, and as you see. So it's actually quite a high heart rate throughout. And again, that's all to do with keeping lactic acid in the system. Because the intensity was so high, so 13.5 k's an hour, her VO2 max was at 11.5, so we've gone 2 k's an hour above that. There's quite a large amount of lactic acid in the system, and that's why that heart rate isn't dropping down much, because she's got a large EPOC response, so she's got a lot of oxygen. Her oxygen demand is still high, even though she's having a 30-second rest in between. Then we had an extended rest there in between sets, down to 105 again, and then back up for a 5-minute effort. We went to 13 k's an hour. So not 13, we went up to 9.5 k's an hour, which is 0.5 less than the first effort. But as you see, the heart rate is still high up there, still moving to the high 170s here. And then we had another 1.5 minute rest, 3 to 1 there, before we finished off with 3 efforts at 13 k's an hour. So dropped that by 0.5, but still well into an anaerobic zone there. As you see, heart rate up at 175, dropping only to 162 again, and up there. And then, interesting fact here, so this is actually her cool down, and she was just walking at 3.5 k's an hour, so just a very comfortable walk pace. And you can see there that the heart rate's still pretty high. It's in the 115s, 113s, and staying quite steady there. So what that tells us is that was a very effective session at getting that EPOC response, getting that excess post exercise oxygen consumption. So that means that her heart rate's still high because her body still has a massive demand for oxygen. Because we've gone so far above threshold, especially for those anaerobic sprints there, that the body has not got back to a resting state after exercise. So that can stay up for up to 24 hours after exercise. And that's why that really hard stuff, that high intensity interval training that a lot of people prescribe is really good for weight loss, because we've got that heart rate still into the hundreds, and it's going to stay probably close to that 100 mark for possibly the next 24 hours. So let's say her resting was maybe 60. I think it's about 55 beats as her resting heart rate. It's actually double that, and it could be double that for the next 24 hours. So you're going to be burning a lot of fat and losing a lot of calories by actually not doing any exercise. So that's why they do that high intensity stuff just for like half an hour or so, because you actually burn a lot of fat afterwards. But going back to performance, again, what this is doing, getting that 70% up closer to that 90%. I don't normally do these in conjunction with each other. So VO2 max sessions have the specific goal of building up that aerobic engine, and these threshold or anaerobic work sessions have a specific goal of building the functional capacity. I normally program them completely separately, so I do them like 3 months apart. But with a four-week challenge, I want to get maximum benefit in that 90 minutes of training that we're doing. So I don't necessarily recommend doing them together, but for the purposes of this experiment, we have put them together to see how we go with the results. Stay tuned for next session, which will be on tomorrow, I think it is, Thursday. Yep. See you soon.